What if a nation long dismissed as poor was actually sitting on 50 billion barrels of oil? In 2025, whispers erupted across Africa that Russia's Gazprom had uncovered a hidden ocean of crude beneath Burkina Faso. A discovery so vast it could rival Libya's reserves and transform the entire Sahel. But if such wealth truly exists, why were Burkinabè told for decades they had none? And who would bury a secret of this magnitude? Let's find out. The rumor did not trickle. It thundered. One morning, Burkinabè citizens woke up to a claim that Russia's energy giant Gazprom had uncovered an oil field so vast it could place their country among the top petroleum powers of the world. The number stunned even seasoned analysts. 50 billion barrels. It was not just wealth, it was transformation. In scale, it was enough to rival Nigeria, overshadow Angola, and match Libya, Africa's long-standing oil giant. The timing of this whisper made it even more explosive. Burkina Faso had only recently expelled French troops and cut its long ties with Paris, declaring a new era of sovereignty under Captain Ibrahim Traore. The sudden emergence of an oil story, with Russia cast as the partner uncovering the truth, felt to many like divine confirmation. France was gone, and at last, the land was beginning to reveal its real treasure. Social media amplified the claim in a way no government could control. Within hours, images of oil barrels, desert rigs, and pipelines flooded WhatsApp groups. Infographics compared Burkina Faso's supposed reserves with global leaders. Young people spoke with pride about a future free of foreign aid. Some even speculated about a United States of Africa powered by Burkinabè oil. In Ouagadougou, the rumor turned into a public conversation. Students at the University of Joseph Kizerbo debated in crowded halls whether the country should immediately nationalize any potential oil fields. Taxi drivers argued over fuel prices, envisioning a future where Burkina Faso would export, rather than import, petroleum products. In rural villages, elders shook their heads with both hope and caution, reminding their communities that resources can lift nations, but they can also destroy them, citing Nigeria's Delta or Libya's endless wars. What made the rumor unique was not just its scale, but its plausibility in the eyes of Africans. For years, Burkina Faso had been officially recorded as having zero proven reserves. International databases, energy reports, and French-linked surveys all told the same story. No oil, no gas, nothing beneath the soil but dust and small traces. And yet people across the Sahel instinctively distrusted these records. They had seen too many examples where foreign powers downplayed, misreported, or outright hid Africa's wealth. The silence of global markets only deepened the sense of mystery. Normally, a discovery of such magnitude would cause oil futures to soar, investors to rush in, and OPEC to take notice. But outside African media circles, there was little reaction. No official geological survey was released, and no contracts were publicly signed. Yet instead of killing the rumor, this silence gave it oxygen. To many Burkinabè, it confirmed what they had long believed. The world only acknowledges Africa's wealth when it serves foreign interests. If the story was not exploding in Western headlines, perhaps it was because the truth was too dangerous to admit. The streets of Burkina Faso reflected this mood. A generation raised on stories of colonial exploitation saw in the oil rumor more than geology. They saw betrayal exposed. It was less about whether Gazprom had actually drilled into a field, and more about the revelation that they had been told they had nothing for so long. The numbers, 50 billion barrels, mattered less than the symbolism of finally being recognized as a land of hidden riches. And here lies the heart of the shockwave. The breaking news was not judged against geological evidence, but against historical memory. People remembered Niger's uranium lighting up France while Niamey stayed in darkness. They remembered Mali's gold filling foreign banks while Malians scraped by. They remembered Guinea's bauxite understated for decades, only later revealed as one of the largest deposits in the world. With such a record, who could doubt that Burkina Faso's oil story fit perfectly into the pattern? Still, the excitement left one question hanging heavy in the air. If France really kept this truth buried, how did it maintain such control for so long? To understand why the rumor of oil in Burkina Faso ignited such instant suspicion of France, one must look at the long history of how Paris has managed Africa's resources. The Sahel story is not simply one of underdevelopment. It is one of deliberate design. France ensured that wealth flowed north while African nations were told to be grateful for crumbs. Take Niger, Burkina Faso's neighbor. For decades, the French company Orano, formerly Areva, mined uranium from the desert town of Arlit. Those uranium-powered French nuclear plants kept Paris brightly lit, while Niger itself languished in poverty. Local communities endured environmental destruction and illness, yet saw little benefit. The bitter irony was impossible to ignore. Niger's wealth illuminated France, but left Nigerians in darkness. The same pattern played out in Mali, where rivers of gold flowed into global markets, but left Malians among the poorest in Africa. In Chad, the discovery of oil in the early 2000s raised hopes of transformation. But IMF and World Bank conditions steered much of the revenue into debt repayment and foreign accounts, rather than schools or hospitals. And in Guinea, French-linked surveys long understated the size of bauxite reserves, only for later studies to reveal the country held some of the largest deposits in the world. These were not accidents, they were tactics of control. Burkina Faso's official designation as a country with no oil now looks suspicious in light of these examples. Was it truly bad luck of geology? Or was it, as many believe, another chapter in the same colonial playbook? By maintaining the narrative that Burkina Faso had nothing, France ensured dependency. A nation convinced it must import fuel will not demand sovereignty over its own reserves. It will sign deals on France's terms, not its own. Control went deeper than resources. France tied its former colonies to the CFA franc system, a currency arrangement that forced countries to deposit foreign reserves in the French treasury. This gave Paris leverage over exchange rates, borrowing, and monetary policy. The system was presented as stable, but in practice it was a leash. When combined with mining concessions and energy contracts, the result was near total control. France dictated not only what left the soil but also how nations could spend what little they received in return. Geological surveys became part of this machinery. For decades, the institutions conducting them were French or French-linked. Data rarely ended up in Ouagadougou's archives. It was studied in Paris, classified, and selectively disclosed. If oil traces were ever found in Burkina Faso, locals may never have been told. A single line in a report could downgrade a promising field into non-commercial interest, ensuring it was forgotten. And forgotten meant exploitable at a later date. This is why the 2025 rumor struck such a deep nerve. People didn't hear oil, they heard confirmation of what they had always suspected, that France had not merely taken resources, but hidden truths. The betrayal was not only economic, it was psychological. To deny a people knowledge of their own land is to keep them chained. And yet, if such a cover-up existed, it raises an unsettling question. How exactly would France have buried evidence of a resource as vast as 50 billion barrels? That question leads us directly into the cover-up theory, a narrative that suggests Burkina Faso's supposed oil is less a discovery and more an old secret finally resurfacing. Let's pause for a second to say, big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. If Burkina Faso has truly been sitting on vast oil reserves, how could such a colossal truth remain hidden for so long? The answer lies in a web of control, one built not through open theft, but through the quiet power of information. Colonial powers understood early that whoever controls the data controls destiny. And for decades, it was France, not Africa, that controlled the surveys, the maps, and the records of what lay beneath Sahelian soil. Africans have long suspected this. In Ouagadougou's cafes and Bamako's universities, people often repeated the same story. We don't know what we have because they never told us. The sense of betrayal didn't come from the 2025 rumor alone. It had been simmering for years. Each time a surprise discovery emerged, whether it was Guinea's underestimated bauxite, Congo's cobalt suddenly becoming indispensable, or Tanzania's gas fields finally confirmed after decades of whispers, the pattern grew harder to ignore. The cover-up theory suggests that what happened in Burkina Faso was no accident. Geological surveys, often conducted by French-linked institutions, could easily downplay or dismiss promising finds. A site marked non-commercial could vanish from discussion. Data archived in Paris could be shelved for decades, unavailable to local officials. In this way, entire nations could be convinced they were barren, when in fact their soil was rich. The logic was strategic. People who believe they have nothing are easier to manage. They will accept foreign aid, tolerate dependency, and negotiate from a position of weakness. But a people who know they sit atop oil or uranium can demand sovereignty, nationalize contracts, and resist outside pressure. Keeping Burkina Faso in the dark was not just about oil, it was about preserving the illusion of scarcity so dependency could endure. History offers chilling examples. In Zambia, colonial administrators deliberately underreported the scale of copper deposits to keep global prices favorable to British companies. In the Congo, cobalt was quietly extracted for decades, with its strategic value largely hidden until foreign industries needed it for batteries and aerospace. In Guinea, bauxite was long understated in French surveys, only for later reports to reveal it as one of the largest reserves worldwide. These precedents made Africans skeptical whenever a new resource rumor surfaced. They knew the pattern. First hidden, then discovered only when convenient for foreign powers. The 2025 oil rumor in Burkina Faso fits this script perfectly. Even if the precise number, 50 billion barrels, is exaggerated, the deeper truth is believable, that the country was misled for decades about its own wealth. This explains why the story spread with such force. It wasn't just about oil, it was about vindication. It was the confirmation of a suspicion people had carried all along, that France had concealed, manipulated, and controlled information to keep Africa weak. And Africans did not receive the rumor passively. They interpreted it actively, connecting it to their history and their lived experience. They asked, if Niger's uranium could light up Paris while Niamey stayed in darkness, why couldn't Burkina Faso's oil be hidden? If Guinea's bauxite was downplayed for years, why not Burkina Faso's crude? The rumor became less of a question and more of a verdict. Still, one puzzle remained. If the truth had really been buried for so long, why did it resurface now? Why did the whispers grow only after France was pushed out and Russia moved in? Was it a coincidence or was it geopolitics at work? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. The oil rumor didn't erupt by chance. It came at the very moment when Burkina Faso had shaken off the grip of its old master. For decades, France was the gatekeeper of everything in the Sahel. Its soldiers patrolled the streets, its companies dug up the mines, its bankers controlled the currency, and its surveys decided what Africans were told about their own land. As long as Paris was in command, the story was always the same. Burkina Faso had nothing. But 2025 was different. Captain Ibrahim Traore had rewritten the script. By expelling French troops, tearing up one-sided contracts, and openly declaring that Burkina Faso's destiny would no longer be dictated in Paris, he forced a new era into existence. His defiance sent a message not just to France, but to the entire world. Burkina Faso would no longer be blindfolded in its own house. That was the context in which the oil rumor took on a life of its own. Suddenly, whispers spread that Russia's Gazprom had uncovered massive reserves beneath Burkinabè soil, perhaps as much as 50 billion barrels. Whether true or exaggerated hardly mattered. What mattered was that the revelation came only after Traore had broken the colonial spell. For decades under French watch, the country was told it had nothing. The moment France was cast out, the earth itself seemed to speak differently. For the people, this wasn't a coincidence, it was proof. Proof that their leader's defiance had lifted the veil. Proof that sovereignty reveals what dependency hides. Traore became the symbol not only of resistance, but of revelation. Young Burkinabè shouted in markets that France wanted us poor, but Traore showed us rich. On radio debates, commentators argued that even if the rumor was only half true, it vindicated the struggle for independence. In this narrative, Russia wasn't the hero, it was the witness. Gazprom may have been named as the company linked to the discovery, but in the eyes of Africans, it was Traore's courage that made such truths possible. By tearing France's claws from the Sahel, he opened the door to possibilities that had been buried for decades. The rumor became less about barrels of crude, and more about the vindication of his rebellion. Geopolitically, the message was devastating for Paris. France had controlled Burkina Faso for generations and never once admitted there was oil. Yet within months of Traore's break, a rival power was tied to whispers of hidden riches. Even if the rumor was unproven, the symbolism was lethal. France lies, Traore liberates. But as powerful as this story was, it also raised an urgent question. What if the reserves are real? Could Traore's defiance not only unmask colonial deception, but also launch Burkina Faso into the League of Africa's energy giants? That question leads us into the final reckoning. What would it mean if the buried truth turned out to be undeniable? The question electrifies the imagination because it is no longer just about geology. It is about justice. And at the center of this reckoning stands Captain Ibrahim Traore, the man who dared to break France's hold and demand that Africans know the truth about their own land. Under France's watch, Burkina Faso was always told it had nothing. No oil, no gas, nothing worth investing in beyond cotton and artisanal gold. That narrative condemned generations to dependency. But Traore changed the rules of the game. By expelling foreign troops, tearing away the CFA France's chokehold, and reclaiming control over Burkina Faso's resources, he created the conditions where hidden truths could no longer be buried. The oil rumor, whether real or exaggerated, is not about Gazprom or Russia. It is about Traore's defiance, finally forcing the veil of colonial secrecy to lift. If the reserves are real, the consequences would be staggering. Overnight, Burkina Faso would join the League of Oil Giants alongside Libya and Nigeria. Its GDP would surge, pipelines would carve new routes across West Africa, and the Sahel would become not just a geopolitical hotspot, but a global energy hub. In such a future, Traore would not simply be remembered as a coup leader. He would be hailed as the man who dragged Burkina Faso from the margins of poverty to the heart of global power. The youth chanting his name in Ouagadougou's streets would see their vision realized, a sovereign nation dictating its own destiny, no longer a pawn in foreign games. But even if the reserves are not real, the rumor itself has already achieved something monumental. It has shifted consciousness. For the first time, ordinary Burkinabè are questioning why they were told they had nothing. They are connecting the dots between Niger's uranium, Mali's gold, Guinea's bauxite, and Chad's oil, all controlled, hidden, or distorted by France's colonial machinery. Whether or not 50 billion barrels exist beneath the soil, the people now understand that the real wealth long denied to them is truth. And that is Traore's greatest victory. He has turned suspicion into sovereignty, rumor into resistance. By casting out France, he gave his people the freedom to question, to demand answers, to look beneath the surface of official narratives. In doing so, he became more than a leader. He became a symbol of Africa's awakening. For Paris, this is the true catastrophe. Oil is valuable, yes, but credibility is priceless, and France has lost both. Even whispers of betrayal are enough to unravel its empire, because Africans no longer accept what is written in French reports. They believe their own history, their own instincts, their own leaders. This is why the oil story refuses to die. It is no longer just a claim about barrels buried in the ground. It is a metaphor for the buried futures of Africa, futures stolen and hidden by colonial deceit. And whether or not Burkina Faso ever drills a single barrel, Traore has already unearthed the most important resource of all, the people's belief that their land holds more than they were told. So the reckoning is here. The world can dismiss the numbers, but it cannot dismiss the anger, the hope, and the defiance. In Ouagadougou and across the Sahel, the people know this much. If France could lie about everything else, why not oil? And if Traore could break the colonial chains once, why shouldn't he be the one to lead them? Into a future no longer dictated by Paris? In the end, the barrels may remain a rumor, but the revolution they inspired is real. Do you believe France really hid Burkina Faso's oil from the world? Let us know in the comment section. Is Ibrahim Traore the leader who can finally turn Africa's buried wealth into power? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.